Hey, buddy. Let's see if Johnny figures out how to unmute himself. There you are.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
Another day in paradise.
That's a quite an optimistic statement.
Yeah.
I love it though. Let's roll with that.
That's been my general stance here. A healthy dose of sarcasm usually helps the day go by all right.
You know, as you've very correctly stated, one's perspective is very, very much the reality, you know? And if we want to perceive it, or if we're able to perceive it as paradise, that's what it is, you know?
Yeah. It changes a lot. I think sometimes we put out images, right? Like I put out a certain image on the show, and I don't show people when I'm pissed off or when I'm upset, or all of the myriad of emotions that come along. And like I've just been sort of raging the past few days. I have not been Buddha mode at all. But that's part of it, you know. I think I've put out a few angry videos.
Yeah, I should have rewatched it. It was actually like a 3-year-old video of yours that I watched the other day, and I'm kicking myself right now because I wanted to bring it up with you. I really liked it, and you might have been a little bit angry in that one. You know, the perspective of paradise, like, you know, is probably largely mental. Like, it just, you know, I spent years as a boat captain, you know, running around in the bright blue waters of the, you know, the Caribbean, the Southern Atlantic. And if we were floating around down there right now, I mean, it's hard to say that that's not paradise, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, the perspective and where and how you view it is certainly a case in point for sure.
Yeah. It's all perspective, and people get upset because the main thing I've noticed that people get upset about is that there are too many options, whether you're in heaven or whether you're in hell. People want to be, they want to have a certain, like, closed down number of options, and then they want all of the ramifications of those options clearly explained, which is of course impossible, right?
Yeah,
completely impossible. But it comes down to whether or not you are willing as the individual within the infinite set, which is, as far as I can tell, that's the reality for each and every one of us. You are an individual, and you have an infinite set of options in every given moment. Do you have the courage to be able to look at that? You know, do you have the courage to be able to acknowledge that, yes, I have infinite options, and I don't really have, like, an actual guidebook, even though there are books that pretend to be guidebooks. We both know that's not the actual reality, right?
Yeah, you know, those books can I think largely they're the negative aspect of them is they tend to program an individual, but, you know, the same thing is a matter of perspective in the way you're using it. You know, if it's used as like an education or an added thought set, you know, from what you gain out of that book. I don't want to say education; that's the wrong word. But just providing, you know, a different perspective of you know, whomever wrote that or translated it or whatever. You know, it's not necessarily a negative thing.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And do you go by Johnny or do you go by Lee, or how would you prefer to be?
It doesn't matter. The Johnny Street Sign name on the channel. I was talking to a friend, and the subject of the 180 genders and people being identifying as a cat or the opposite gender or this or that or whatever, and I'm like, well, I'm going to be a street sign. And so that's where, and Johnny was my screen name from motorcycle stunts for years. So just, I changed it, and, I might have even mentioned to you, like in an email that, the name Lee on my driver's license is my legal fiction or my name on my birth certificate, but I kind of denounced that birth certificate. There's no ownership contract between any Rockefeller and myself on the name of that ownership contract. So I guess I kind of prefer Johnny at this point,
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's a good thing. You revoked you mentally revoked your straw man status, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You didn't go you didn't send a document to the people who are organizing these things saying
No, I'm not going to acknowledge them that kind of power.
Okay. That's good.
Because then, I could probably be swayed otherwise, but then I'm participating in their system, to send them a document and say I am not this person or whatever. So spiritually, I'm not participating in their system unless I saw a reason to do otherwise to participate in that system, to legally withdraw or something. But I haven't seen those options or partaken in any of them.
Yeah, I've done that. I've been of a similar mindset as far as making binding legal moves here. I know that trail leads out pretty far if you go analyzing that whole side of it. And what I eventually came to is probably a similar thing as how you feel, is that sovereignty is not something that is given in documents. It's not something that you need to sign, because you're just bringing the straw man back. If you sign anything anywhere, you bring it back immediately, even if it's a nickname that you're signing as. You're still bringing an entity back, and we don't need that. It's not necessary.
Yeah, and it's acknowledging a physical presence when I'm making a spiritual statement or identifying as who I am as a spiritual being. It's engaging into the physical realm that they try to tell us we're pinned in.
Yeah. We've got a few people. We've got Andrew. Andrew says he's still identifying as a waffle. That's good.
Cool. I personally know a dinosaur and trout. I'm gonna catch major crap because I forgot the other one. But yeah, they're they're all good options for sure. I wanted to because a lot of people have seen it. When you said this was going to be on Zoom, I was like, man, if I could figure out how to go on as a cat, I'm definitely going on as a cat. But
yeah.
This is literally my first second ever on Zoom, so I don't know where the filter settings are and everything. So if I'm showing up as a cat, I'm not a cat.
You're not a cat, unfortunately.
Yeah. The super quick rundown on me is, I was, I grew up in a really, I was in a private school, finished school early, quit, I was done with school by the time I was 13, worked as a boat captain, was married to a theoretical astrophysics professor and was deep in the matrix and, car racing, then motorcycle stunt riding, and then divorced, and a lot of craziness since then. And now I'm a truck driver. About 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I questioned whether or not I was on a spinning ball, which was an aha moment because I had a background in photography and lighting, and looking at the sun coming out from behind a cloud. I was like, wait, something's massively wrong with this. And so that led me down that road, which I think I was into another psyop. I have friends that like identify as flat earthers, and I'm like, it's just the same exact psyop as the baller.
Yeah.
So you're trapping yourself in a physical realm. It's literally the same psyop. And so yeah, long story short, then a couple years ago, I saw changes in the physical world, and then changes in scripture, and it led me down quite a rabbit hole, which I think eventually led to the and I wasn't looking for it, but like I said, the rabbit holes don't have bottoms, and I kind of feel like I found the bottom of the flat earth, round earth rabbit hole, and I wish I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
And so that was a little while ago, and now I'm out here single driving a semi truck and looking out the windshield at the madness,
Can you elaborate on that bottom you're talking about? I would be very curious to hear what that is, what your opinion of that is.
So, over the past, since seeing things change, I've had a few visions, and to just lump them all into one, I think there's, we have our conscious earth layer that we're at right here, which is maybe a couple different things. I'll circle back to that with the bottom of that rabbit hole. I think there's like a dream realm, and I think some dreaming is the mind going, and some dreaming is another layer of reality that's much like this one. And then I've had visions where I feel, or I know, in my own consciousness that I was taken somewhere and shown something, and that conscious experience is the same level as what you did if you were at work yesterday and you recall back on something you did at work yesterday. It's that same level of conscious experience in a vision. So, and then like being led certain ways, and being, like I use apps in trucking to see where I'm parked right now. I was using I knew about when showtime was, so I was looking, is there a truck stop or a rest area that's going to land me there about 30 minutes before showtime, so I can, get the curtains to where I'm not in solid glare, and get the truck parked and get everything shut down and do the show. So using that app in a certain area, I kept being led, look at this, pay attention to this, look at this. And I kind of like delved a little bit down the melted buildings and these World Fair buildings don't make sense, and where'd this stuff come from, and all of our history is a lie. So I kind of been down all those roads and studied all that, and in particular, you can find this all over, but it was a particular area of West Texas that I kept going across, and I kept getting led, look at this, pay attention to your surroundings. And so I'm looking at the app from above, I'm taking pictures of the road, and I start to look at this area from the app. So it's like, I think the app actually uses Google Earth as an overlay, and then you can find the truck stop, or like I use it for deliveries too. Like I'll find where the driveway is to get into a distribution center. Mm-hmm. So I'm backing up and looking from, I don't know, say 10,000 feet, and I keep seeing patterns, and I'm like, I know this pattern. Like, what are these patterns? This is really familiar to me. And roll back about 4 or 5 years, I got really into building and flying my own drones, and I built them from scratch. And I've actually built some of the circuit board stuff and the flight controllers and the programming, and I've gotten into writing code and all that. But I'm looking at this area in West Texas, and I'm like, I know these patterns. What are these patterns? I've seen this. Like, this is really familiar to me. And then it hits me, and it's like one of those, it was an oblique moment, a big oblique moment. I'm like, this is a freaking circuit board. I know exactly what I'm seeing here. And I start zooming in and looking at components of the circuit board and processing processors and diodes and all this kind of stuff, and it was a pretty like faith shaking freak out moment that like this whole area of West Texas is a big motherboard, and
I've thought of that one too. How would that work though? How do you think that would work? Like, just to, try to imagine what that means exactly. Like, if this thing that we're in is actually a circuit board, how does that actually work? Like, is there actually electric currents going between these diodes, which are actually buildings, and are the people actually similar to electrons? Like, how does this actually work?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the physical way it works. I have my own theory that I'll throw out there. I think, personally, I think this is a divine creation. My personal belief is God of the Bible, and Jesus, and that it has been satanically hijacked in the form of a matrix, which kind of leaves us like living in, for lack of better terms, like the computer matrix. Mm-hmm. And I've seen actual glitches in the matrix, like many times actually, and I see things that completely break down, reality and what we would put in, in the scope of our normal reality, and it completely breaks it down and shatters it. So something is going on here that's like, way outside of any of it, like maybe not you, but like most people thought or whatever is this realm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the functioning of a circuit board is pretty easily seen, and the actual components are there. One of the spots that is a processor in West Texas is a big, right? I'm like looking, I'm like, this right here would be a processor, and I zoom in, and it appears to be a shallow pool with like a dark green algae in it, and it's out in the desert, mm-hmm. and there's traces going to other places, and other places that would be resistors and diodes, and there's all these like oil pump things that look like those infinite bird drinker things, and a bunch of them, there's like no pipeline, no oil, no nothing. I'm like, what the heck are these doing? Like an on and off trigger or something? So like, they do make sense as far as computer components, and I don't know if that algae can act as a processor. I know a while back they were having trouble shrinking chips because, they were down on like a molecular atomic level, and they were like, we're going to actually have to grow the chips, mm-hmm. And they're going to have to be organic to get any smaller. And if we roll back 100 years, maybe that's the way they made the chips work, was by having them the size of 2 Olympic swimming pools.
Maybe it's just going up and going down, and that's just how it's always been. Like, it could just be the turtles phenomenon, like,
yeah,
or what you call it, Rick and Morty episode, like it's just it goes bigger into however far you can see, and it goes smaller into however far you can see, and I don't know necessarily that. I think it's easy. It's probably easy, especially with the help of substances and or sort of like meditative deep dives. It probably is easy to try to explore and then lose your place within the thing itself, which is just this giant stacked Russian nesting doll type phenomenon, and you try to get back to wherever you were because you're like, oh fuck, this isn't fun exploring all these weird mechanical layers of the nesting doll, and then you lose your way. I think a lot of spirit beings have done that, and that energy itself, if you consider that we're in a matrix type thing, and also Becky has said, souls are traumatized, and the traumatized soul magnetizes to the edge of the cube, and then it powers it. That's how the edges of the cube were powered, according to her story. So I have a feeling that no matter which way you explore or move yourself within the matrix, your energy is harvested or utilized at every moment, unless you have been doing enough practice to where you're retaining, you're sitting like a pool of water rather than this fucking cyclone that's just ripping in and out of the dimensional walls,
Yeah, it has to be something along those lines, and the power structure, like, well, I don't call it the power structure of government, the perceived power structure. Not just that, but the realm itself, the evil side of it puts forth a lot of effort to strike emotions and beliefs and fear and whatever else into the general populace. So, the motives of feeding or getting power off of that,
I think it's
even in the form of.
Sorry, I think it's kind of like a friction. Somebody figured out that just like the kid that figured out how to make a device that sits in the ocean and harvests the movement of the ocean, right? Whichever way the tide is swaying, that device is still going to pull energy from it. So if you imagine that someone looked at humanity and said, how can I, technologically extract information from this swaying ocean of humans, then you find at some point it doesn't matter which way that ocean is swaying, it just needs to be fucking moving, right? And that gives way to the next thought, which is we don't care what they're upset about or what they're angry or hating about or where they're moving or how they're moving, because our collectors are going to collect regardless. We just don't want them fucking meditating. If they're all meditating, we don't get any energy out of it, right? So it's kind of a dumb analogy, but I think that's probably closer to what's actually going on than, oh, there's this elaborate hijinks and then this faction is fighting against this faction and they really care which way the humans are going. I don't think they really care.
No, definitely. You're way on the right track with that, for sure.
And that also makes sense with respect to the lack of intelligent movements in whatever we see being portrayed on the boob tube, because there's no logic in it. You just see it's like it's been dumbed down to the lowest level of electron movement, which is equated to the human. They just want that thing to wiggle. They don't care how it wiggles, it just needs to be wiggling. So you see they've dumbed the intelligence down, and now the bottom level electron you just need to bang the machine with a hammer. You don't need to
Yep.
It's really simple. It's gotten to a really simple, stupid level now.
Yeah, and it's a very obvious loop of what they're showing the humans. That if we put war, famine, asteroids, disease, however many, the cover of Time magazine, like however many ways they were going to kill us all for the last 50 years, earthquakes, tidal waves, and it's just this loop of the same thing going on to incite, that fear and the war and the anger over and over and over again. So, I mean, that plays into what you just said. It's just an obvious, simple loop of the same stuff,
Yeah, but when you've come out of it, then you're not an unwitting participant anymore. And I mean, I think if you examine your own life, you don't see the thing happening where it's like some people have black helicopters and they have they have all the TI stuff going on, and they got this hubbub of activity around their own central being. But I think if you don't engage in it to a certain extent, then you are left alone here, literally. Like, you're left alone, and I see more and more that I myself am the generative device for this reality, at least for my bubble. The other ones moving around me, with the exception of Andrea and a few other people that I know, they are moving in sort of automaton fashion, and they're going along with whatever the machine is spitting out. But which is a double-edged sword, because it means I can do whatever I want and be left in relative peace, but at the same time, the reality is a little bit dry because there's a bunch of robots running around, It's an interesting phenomenon.
You saying that, it made me remember the show of yours that I watched. Like I said, I think it was like 3 years old, but I bet you remember it. You were driving down the road, and you were like, this is no different than fucking GTA 5, looking at the scenery around you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
No, I've made way too many videos.
So it was, but the thing, driving like towards the city and looking at the overall scape, and the buildings and the masses running around and the rat race that it's always been called, and you were just comparing it like this is no different than a freaking video game, and unless I do something to ruffle it, it's not, there's nothing happening. There's nothing going on here.
Exactly.
Other than like the background of a game, and that made me think of something I brought up. I probably thrown it in your comments on one of your shows, because to me it's a good one to either make, like, if you've got somebody that's teetering, it's either going to make them blue screen or they're just going to spit out a couple of oddly scripted answers that obviously don't answer it. And because I noticed this a while back that for all intents and purposes, there's basically no graveyards. There's a few small ones, and like I'm in Tucson a lot, and there's a few thousand graves, but you've got a city of 1.4 million people. So let's just say there's one generation dead. There should be one generation of people dead, right? There should be at least one person dead for every one person alive.
There should be more than that if it's 100,000 years, of humanity.
Right.
Not 100, well, maybe 2,000 years if you're listening to the Bible, but there's still prehistory even with the, BC AD thing. There's still prehistory. There's the monkeys, they're the whatever they're called. The sloped head, just dum-dums running around with wacky sticks, and before, so if you buy into any of that story, there have been supposedly humans around here forever, and yes, supposedly they die every 80 years, and yes, none of it makes sense logically. There aren't enough graveyards. We don't see people dying. We don't hear about people dying almost ever. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's very much like a humming. It's a well-oiled machine in terms of sort of like mistakes, fuck-ups, accidents. I barely see people upset at each other anymore. It's very interesting to think about the stories we're told versus what we see in the eyeball reality, because, and I think this also has a lot to do with our own internal temperament, because probably when I was younger and not as grounded as I am right now, there probably was more stuff appearing, because as within, so without. Like, you're literally extending out. We're making this thing. Like, we're making this realm as we go. We don't know how we do it, but I know for a fact that's what's happening. It's not just like this thing that's going along. Everything reacts to me as I walk through a certain area. All the animals know I'm there. All the people know I'm there. It's not just like, it's the same thing over and over again. We just got scared or something and we forgot. Even if you're in an organic reality, that's not a Matrix thing. You're still part of it. Like, you're directly affecting your environment, whether it's Matrix, simulated, or fully organic.
Well, the one of the strongest physical manifestations I've seen that, and I really hope it can be done for good too, but physical manifestations that I've personally seen, and I know I've seen it, other people trigger it, is our own fears can be manifested. And like right when the whole, a little over a year ago now, when the lockdowns were all happening, I'm a truck driver, so I'm driving like across state borders, 2-3 times a day. I'm going through 3-4 different states a day. Mm-hmm. And all these supposed lockdowns are going on, and I'm like, there ain't crap happening. There's like, there's nobody anywhere. There's no cops doing anything. They're standing on the side of the road. The troopers are like on the side of the highway drooling, and the trucks are going by 30 miles an hour over the speed limit in a freaking construction zone, and nobody's doing anything. Nothing. And, I kind of snapped at one point. I quit driving. I went to Texas and I laid on the floor, and my mom, who just passed, I laid in her house for a couple weeks, and then I ended up having to drive, a rent-a-car from Texas to Florida, and, a minivan with no license plate from Florida back to Texas. And to bring it to a point, the one border that I was worried, because in the commercial truck there was never any restrictions, so I didn't have to worry about, going state to state. But in the rent-a-car, in my mind, I was nervous about one border, and that was going back into Florida in the rent-a-car, and being like, having them either want to shove a swab up my nose or something, to cross back into the border. And that was the only border in all of this mess that I was worried about. And guess what? That's the only border that I ever got stopped at.
You were driving without like your tags and all that stuff? Is that what you're saying?
No, that time I was in a rent-a-car, so it had a plate and stuff on it. Okay. And then when I went back the other way, it was in a minivan that I got from a close friend, and all the DMVs were closed down. So I literally wrote "in transit" on a piece of paper and stuck it on the back and drove it all the way across the country, and not a single, I had cops behind me, they never even looked at me. Yeah. And that's, I don't know. It was, but that, like I said, and that was about the time, I'm sure you've heard of Richie from Boston. Uh-huh. He's driving around, he's like, there's crew movements everywhere. I'm like, that's because that's what you went out and drove and you were thinking about, and that's what you saw. And I'm like, I'm wondering if we're on the same highway, if there would have even been tanks on that train or just regular containers. And I could have been 20 feet away from him, and I would have looked over at that train and seen regular containers, and he looks over and he sees 100 tanks. Because I didn't see any I drive 400 miles a day, and I didn't see, I occasionally see, military equipment on the back of a flatbed because it's cheaper for them to transport it that way. But I didn't see anything unusual through any of that still to this day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the big secret. I think that it's not a secret for those of us who know it, but it's that the reality, number one, is not set. It's just not set, period. Even if you think outside of varying stories that come from people, it's just not a set thing. It's a fluid thing. And I've had the same exact thing that you just described, where when you find this out, you're like, oh, I need to go do this and that, and I need to make a mental picture of what I want to see as I'm walking through the city, and see if it comes around like that. But it's not as easy as that, because you're just bringing the game deeper. If you have fears in you, you have fears in you. You don't just say, okay, well, now I know that I'm looking out and seeing, what I expect to see, so therefore I can change it. No, if you have a deep-rooted fear in you, you're still going to manifest it. It's just going to manifest in a more subtle way, in a more roundabout way than, oh, I'm worried that the government's going to come and get me because I didn't pay my taxes or whatever, and then, bang, bang, there's an IRS person at the door. It's not as easy as that, although that is the phenomenon that we have going on here.
Definitely. When I figured that out, it was probably about a month after that. So it's right about a year ago that I figured that out, and I saw several examples of it, and I had talked to a few friends, and they were able to pin down essentially the exact same scenario that had happened to them within the past few months or whatever. They're like, holy crap, you're absolutely right. I 100% manifested that reality out of my fear, and so obviously well, crap, I want to manifest a Porsche, It's if I can manifest a freaking roadblock at the Florida border, and what they had done is they had put cones up and it forced all the cars behind the weigh station, and I'm used to going through the weigh station. Most cars aren't. And we all had to go behind the weigh station. There was 2 tents set up, and what I ended up doing, I'm in the rent-a-car, and I always have to have my paperwork within arm's reach or whatever. So I just literally held it up to the passenger window. I put the passenger window down and said, "I'm commercial. I'm going back to pick up my semi truck in Central Florida or whatever." And I started putting the window back up, and they were like, "Go ahead." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, I'm going." And so that's a game of it, it's an interesting aspect, of the place.
If you make it into sort of a game, then the root is literally fear. And you can't. The thing is you can't just get rid of it. Be like, oh, I don't want to fear anything anymore. So then just poof, going away. That's not how it works. You have to somehow. It has to get burnt out of you. That's the whole ego death thing. Every time you go through an ego death, you burn through a bunch of fear possibilities, and once you're past that, then you're not scared of that happening anymore because you've seen it. But you can't make certain things happen. You can sort of move the flow of your reality, like I'm doing. I'm moving the flow of my reality to how I see fit, and nobody bothers me for the most part, because I know my own rule set, which is let people be, they let me be. Pretty much, for the most part. It's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there is a underlying theme of darkness in this particular realm, but that's also in every single manifest realm. That's just duality, you know. But you can partake of that dichotomy either if you wish to or if you don't. And if you're in a situation where you have these dark forces or these dark energies trying to come after you, then you just got to deal with it. You can't run away from it because it's going to make it worse, and you can't try and destroy the darkness because that's also going to make it worse. You have to find some way of being within the situation to where you're not just running away in some aspect. I think confronting things, whether they're fear things or whether they're, I want to accomplish this and there seem to be blocks in me and externally, and how do I go about it, you know? That seems to be the most constructive way for me that I've found. Not backing away from something. Like if you're driving and you see cops and you feel like they're going to stop you, like you have multiple ways to approach that situation. You can go in the way that's like, I'm very assertive in how I speak to these people, and I'm not sitting here spouting off about flat Earth versus round Earth and you know, the shadow government and so on, because I know these people are not going to think in those terms and they're going to label me as insane and probably haul me off to the loony bin. But there are different ways of approaching situations while retaining your knowledge that gives you a little extra power edge. But rather, you don't just come to the cops and, you know, let them manhandle you. You just learn how to move within situations where you still retain power.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's there are some. I talked about like the loop that we see on the. I quit watching TV a long time ago, but you still hear about like what's going on, and there are a few things like in my lifetime. Actually, recently though, I would say like we've kind of been. I don't know. Maybe to put it like they changed the rules a bit, and a lot of people have woke up, or I hate the term woke up because I don't know, I just don't like it. But a lot of people we see a separation of people that can see what's going on and masses that are just taking the download and programmed, and I don't even know what those beings are. But what we're facing. Well, the whole mask thing, which now, holy crap, what are they going to do next with it? And the, I got to probably be, do you care, what verbiage I use or whatever? I don't want to get the show knocked off.
I don't care. Nah.
All right, the sharp thing they want to stick in everybody?
Yeah.
One thing that I figured out a little bit too a little while ago is actually I think kind of some of the technical parts about how they're doing this, like flying the long distance RC stuff. My long range antennas look identical to a DNA strand, and they are identical to a DNA strand. And I started to look at all this tech, and I'm like, holy crap! These antennas and everything. If I knew the exact measurements of the DNA in your optic nerve, with my hobby-grade equipment, I could potentially beam a video stream right into your brain. Mm. And, if what they're going to jab everybody with rewrites part of your DNA coding, that's pretty bad. So, we are facing, facing some things that we weren't, facing before, so...
Yeah, I mean, it's not a funsy onesie thing that they're trying to do. The DNA, as far as I know, is just the encoding of your actual past, not the overlays, not the false memories, and so on and so forth. It's the sort of Akashic record of your past lives and your past movements through whatever realms. And as far as I know, if you're trying to hijack that, you're literally trying to take over people's long body, right? Like their movement through other lives. You're trying to take over that or trying to subjugate that or whatever. So it's not like It's not a simple thing or an easy thing. It's very nasty, this sort of thing. But we already know that. Like, I think if you're here and you're not an NPC, you've been tortured in the past. Maybe you don't remember it right now, but we were wiped from a lot of the more torturous aspects of what has happened in this matrix because the conscious mind can't handle it. So we were wiped from that, so we can continue on, but that's what the DNA is it's the memory, it's holding the memory of past lives that include the torture aspects, but it also includes the non-torture aspects, and we're barred from both of them, so it acts as like a placekeeper where our subconscious holds it, essentially. So
that's interesting.
They're trying to hijack the subconscious memory of our movements through this place.
I mean, like, I know, like, we're, at least I am, I can't speak for anybody else, I know, like, I'm mind-wiped to a point. I know, like, some of the things, like, I learn, I'm not learning them, I'm remembering them, Mm-hmm. And some of the sense of knowing whether something is true or not, it's a sense of remembering something and not, learning something new. I hadn't thought about, like, what you're saying is, like, that wipe is also taking out the negative aspect of what was back there,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's interesting.
We are in a precarious spot as far as it's like driving backwards. You look at the past as you're moving into the unknown future. It's literally driving backwards, looking out the rearview window as you're going forward. It makes no sense logically speaking, but that does hint at sort of trauma that has gone on here. And if you listen to any of the people speaking out, like just the main people, Lauda Og, Becky Barron, Aurora, all these people I've had on, the main theme of it is trauma. Like, that's just the main theme of our path through this place. It's not a fun thing, but that's the thing. That's what this place is. It's literally, this place is a traumatizing element for the human spirit. It's not fun for the most part. And if you try to wake up and you're not prepared for it, then you start creeping up to the outside edges of that trauma that's held in the memory, and you bounce off of it,
Interesting. That the lady you had on, I guess last week, she brought up some really interesting points about some of that too. Wish I could remember them.
Becky, right? Did I have Becky on last week? I think it was last week.
Yeah, I think that was her name.
Yeah, Becky Barron. They shut her YouTube channel down. She has like she looks into the Plato's cave aspect because we're supposed to be, our light bodies are supposed to be in this place that's projecting out this realm, and if we don't remember that we are the light body itself projecting out this ephemeral phenomenon of 3D existence, then it can be tampered with from that level. And what she's saying is that that level of our projection to this place is messed with, and there's high tech placed in and around the light bodies, and everything is manipulated, highly manipulated. So she can astrally go in and look to your light body and find out what's being messed with, and it's not like mechanical, so to speak. It's more thought forms, but this whole thing is thought forms. All of it's thought forms. It's just solid thought versus very ephemeral, very light thought.
Yeah. I wonder what, like, they've given away some of the stuff, like with the social distancing and things like that, like, and how far, like the double slit experiment, like, I don't know how much we're lied to about that. I've never, like, done the experiment myself. But I know there's some aspect to it that's correct. It just brings some, like, it makes it interesting, like, how far out it is. I hadn't paid attention to it in a while, but driving across the desert, I'm sure you've seen, like, miraging on the road,
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, the car, like, a half mile in front of you looks like it's almost floating or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, like, the other day, maybe I'm like, holy crap, that's probably, like, it's just not totally rendered yet, you know? And,
yeah, maybe.
It was, this guy, Mark, that I know from years ago when I first started questioning things, he was like, the whole tree falls in a forest doesn't make a sound. He's like, it's not even rendered yet if nobody's there to observe it. And I'm like, yeah, probably so.
Yeah, it literally is a self-defeating argument. The double slit experiment is self-defeating. It's nice to think about, but I remember I was pondering on this earlier, and it was like, well, if you look at a recording of how the energy interacts versus you look at it directly, then you see it's different. But still, like, you're looking at the recording with your eyeballs, you're also looking at the thing directly, so there's still like an intermediary thing in there, and you don't know it's changing. We're trying to play God essentially, and we are God, but also we're trying to like reduce it down to something that the human psyche can understand, and it just can't understand it. Like, from the God level, if you take DMT or something, you whoosh on out and you see everything that the playground you've been in for the last couple eons, then you're like, oh, I get it. Like, all of this makes sense. But from this level, we sit there and we try to play the larger aspect of ourselves that knows everything, and it's infinitely complex. It's not something that every moment is infinitely complex. We want to be able to understand it from that level that's kicked up in heaven or wherever, and we can't do it. But that's also part of the adventure is because you can't actually make a mistake, even though you think you can, because pain hurts and all that stuff. You can't actually tell who's going to make the mistake. Like, how do you know? Like, you're just comparing it to some past scenario mentally. The thing just goes on. Like, we're like you said, it's a divine creation. We're in the divine creation, and it can get as good as it can get, and it can get absolutely horrifyingly evil and incredibly painful. But you're the game player still, whether it's a simulation or whether it's, quote, real life.
Yeah. Yeah, man, the actual dynamic of what exactly is it, I don't know if it matters that much, but, it does give us clues into, because I've read the question, what are we doing here? What's the purpose of it? And, what are we supposed to learn or accomplish, or, what's the right path or whatever. So, it does kind of, it has a weight in that, because, if you think about the masses and what real people are mixed in there, and what is our path as far as any of that. I guess it does, it does have a weight to it as to what the place is and what we're doing here.
Well, it just gets more and more complex, really. And if you can retain curiosity as the game player, if you look at, well, not only are we just here, living in these bodies, not only that, but also we don't even know what the construct is. We don't know if it's a physical place. We don't know if it's a plane. We don't know if it's a flat Earth. We don't know if it's Plato's cave being projected from somewhere back there. We don't know if we're just a thought in God's mind. You have all these added layers of complexity, and if you can retain curiosity, it just makes the gameplay that much more interesting, rather than, oh God, there's too many elements, and it's overwhelming to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, I see, patterns and stuff. Most of the time I can't make sense of them. You remember the things in the mall where, it was just a blotchy image, and if you stared at it, a sailboat would pop out of it?
Mm-hmm. Like Magic Eye stuff?
What's that?
Like Magic Eye books, where you, move it in and out, and then is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about something else?
Yeah, I think that's what they might have been called. Initially it just looked like a bunch of blotches of color, a kind of similar color often, a bunch of shades of little blotches of blue, but then an image would pop out of it if you looked at it at the right distance.
A 3D image, right? A 3D image would pop out of it.
Yeah, like a 3D image would pop out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, seeing the patterns of the computer board from up high and whatever. But geez, I was going somewhere with that. Maybe it'll come back to me.
How have you been with your family? Like, are they all still snoozing away, or do you have anybody that you can speak with about these things? Friends?
Well, I grew up with my father in Florida, and he's passed, and my mom's side of the family is in Texas, and I've never known them all that well, and my mom just passed, and my grandma passed about 6 months ago. So I just pretty much have cousins and a couple aunts left, and I'm not in real good touch with them.
Do you have siblings at all? You're only child?
I have a half-brother and a half-sister, and I don't know them at all.
Okay. So they
were gone when they were, little. I met them, I knew them, as babies or whatever, but, by the time they were a couple years old, the parents had split, and they're gone, so...
That can be
kind of alone.
That kind of can be a benefit, because most of our surroundings are just programming elements that help us to not wake up.
Yeah, right. No, like handlers or whatever, and so it's, my mom seemed to be able to see everything, but I think she was falling back into the world,
Mm-hmm.
So that, was kind of a blessing, I think, at this point in the game. That she just went. My dad was several years ago. Now, and the pattern popped back into my mind and then left again. Shoot. The things that change, and I started looking at it a while ago. Some of the things they shouldn't bug me at all, but they do. Like the dash in the Kit Kat bar. I know there was a damn dash in the Kit Kat bar. And that one particular thing, I think, bugged me so bad, because I'm like, what possible entity or thought process, because, doing something like that kind of change has to take some sort of, effort on some level by some entity. And I'm like, what the hell? It makes no sense at all, And, the Ford logo, just got weird again. And so, I've been looking for a pattern in that. I'm like, there's something here that we're supposed to see or make sense of, And, I hadn't seen much, shifts in any of that in a while, and then I just saw a couple of very noticeable ones in the past couple of days again. And, just looking for sense in the patterns, and I think of those 3D things that popped out, and I'm like, there's got to be something here that we're missing, And if we manage to look at it in the right perspective, we're going to see it, And I don't know. I'm hoping there's progress in that,
Yeah, I think there is progress in terms of. There's a language that is essentially being created by those of us who have said yes, essentially, to anything other than the presented narrative, right? Once you say yes on one level, then the thing starts unraveling, and what happens out of that is a new sort of language starts being created, where, we're having a conversation here, we've touched on a lot of different topics, and the only reason the conversation has any sort of logical threading to it is because we both have looked at a lot of different elements that your average person that's still snoozing away, they would have issue at the first 5 things that we said. There would need to be a lot of explaining, right?
Yeah.
Whereas it's not here because we have, at least mentally touched on a lot of different things that are going on, and we've made it okay, at least internally, so it's not freaking us out. When you talk about, flat Earth versus ball Earth, that's going to trip up 90% of the people if they first hear that in a conversation. It's just not going to work. Or Mandela, there are so many different elements. I've thought about making a video where I just think of the list of things that you could consider a little bit, all these type of things. Mandela effect, flat Earth, round Earth, the Matrix, the fall. That's 4 things, right? And I know there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things, of terms, of thought forms that go into creating a new language. It's a whole new language.
Yeah.
So I think in that term, we're making progress. Like the fact that has somehow manifested itself, and we can have this conversation, and we've never talked to each other before. I think that is progress.
Oh, for sure, definitely, and that may be one of the pieces to the puzzle. Is collectively, it may take like a much more collective effort than we've been able to put together so far to make sense of some of this stuff, and if that's even supposed to happen. I know, like, over the past couple of years, meeting other people online and stuff, a lot of people are very distressed and very isolated, and nobody they can talk to, like, they live somewhere in New York or something, and they're like, I don't know personally anyone that I can talk to about this stuff in person, physically. Mm-hmm. And that's I'm isolated in this truck to the point where, like, it's maddening. It's very, very difficult. But, like, one good thing about it is as I drive around the country, and I've got to personally meet quite a few people that I met through YouTube that can also see the same things, and I've been able to be face to face with them and have them sit in the truck with me and hang out, and give them a hug and fly drones and hang out and eat and whatever. So, but yeah, maybe, I think collectively, at first everybody, like a lot of people said, oh, it's God's plan. And I think we did need to learn to, like, have some kind of faith and learn to stand on our own, and that there was possibly a purpose in that. But I also think about the fact that, like, divide and conquer is evil. And, we're spread out all over the, whatever this place is. And so, that makes it difficult also, because there's strength in numbers, and divide and conquer is evil. So, I don't know. I think, collectively, it would be good if we, could all come together more, not just conversationally, but be around each other in a similar part of the realm more often too.
Yeah, I mean that's again, it goes back to I've met a lot of people myself. Like I've also met face to face with a lot of people, and everyone is traumatized. Like whether you're real or whether you're fake. Well, if you're fake, you're probably not traumatized because there's no self to be traumatized. But we have a very long ways to go to be able to come to a situation where even someone like me could say, okay, look, here I am in Colorado, we're going to all organize and we're going to get together, we're going to pick a spot that the most people are the closest to, and we're all going to get together and have a big powwow and talk about what to do about the realm, right? I've thought about that many times. I've thought about organizing something like that. I've seen efforts to organize things like that, and I know for a fact if and when we did that, it is going to be targeted immediately. I know that for a fact. Like,
oh yeah,
no second thought. It is going to be full on targeted, and everyone. If you are not literally a fucking hovering Buddha, if you still have all kinds of shit going on inside, that shit's going to come out the second that meeting tries to happen. So it literally, like, the people who want to come together, you have to be doing self-work. You literally have to do it. You have to do it on a daily basis. Because we are the fucking generators of the reality, and if we have not taken care of our shit, we're going to create a bunch of bullshit, like a bunch of war, a bunch of this, a bunch of that. That's the only way that can happen. So I don't even see that happening in the near-term future. I see it as a possibility at some point, but this thing has to progress itself further, and the so-called reals have to get over petty shit. You have to embrace the fact that you're a divine creator, and you have to also embrace the fact that this is not just a light, like, funsy onesie realm. It's not. It's dark, and you have to have done self-work. I wouldn't even consider meeting with a whole bunch of people at this current juncture. I wouldn't even consider it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, it could change quickly. Because we're watching moves from the other side, and we don't know what to expect. anybody that I know, we got pretty damn blindsided a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now leading up to that, about a month, like all the groups I was in that were either studying scripture or aware of what was going on in the realm, for about 4 weeks leading up to the Cheeto president announcing a state of emergency, everybody was like, something is seriously wrong. Like, something is about to happen. You know what I mean? Like, that, like, there was a very strong sense that something was about to go down. And everybody was like, you know, can you feel it? I'm like, I can feel it. Something is like huge about to go down, but it's not the end. Like, it's not, you know, full on Armageddon or whatever. I don't know what it is, and it's, you know, it's going to be a massive impact, but like, we all felt that leading up to it for about a month. I don't know, you know, like what your experience with that was, but my group, you know,
pre-corona, you talking about?
What's that?
Pre-corona, like in January
or
whatever?
Yeah, like the month leading up to the announcement of a state of emergency, like, you know, everybody felt it coming.
Yeah, I don't remember in that time period thinking, oh, I definitely felt this coming. I felt that the whole Trump leaving was going to be at least used to sort of usher in more discord, because Trump, at least holding the pretend figurehead position of president, ruffled the feathers of the dark side. Like, even if he was one of them on some level, it was not just business as usual. It was something different. So I felt that that itself, at least, you know, in 2020, when the guard was supposed to change, I felt that at the very minimum that was going to be revealing, because, and it was, you know, you could all of the cards have been shown, so to speak, as far as I can tell, with this dark cabal versus the, you know, the living beings that are here. They're showing their hand, and that to me is most illustrative that they're losing power. That's all that it says to me, is that they're losing power. The man in the little closet pulling the levers, you know, someone's peeking around the corner now, and he's not just in there with full immunity. He, like, his thing is falling a little bit.
That was one of the great points. Rose was her name last week.
Becky?
Was that her name? Becky. That was one. I think it was her. Maybe it was the guy the week before. Oh no, it was a show that you were on. It wasn't your channel.
With Emily?
The chess guy.
Oh, Danilo?
Yeah, the guy that plays chess?
Yeah, Danilo.
Yeah, and he brought up this point, and I was kind of surprised because it seemed a little bit outside of, like, his level of awareness was, and I'm pretty sure this is where it came from, the level of censorship is indicative of a power structure that's terrified.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't, you know, if it was secure in its power and, you know, in its just rule over the masses, it wouldn't care what we said.
Right.
It would have no fear, there would be no need for the censorship. So it's pretty revealing in itself, like, how bad the censorship is on YouTube and all these platforms, that we're not allowed to say all these things, means that it has a pretty big fear of it triggering people and opening their eyes to things. So that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's censorship is it's a revealing that the thing is scared of just conversation, like, and
yeah,
that's bad. Like, in terms of a fight or something, imagine if someone's boxing and you know, they're getting ready to duke it out, and one guy, instead of going and having the fight, he, like, tries to build, like, an enclosure around the other guy so he can't even see that he's there anymore. Like, it's something like that. It's the thing is not wanting to engage us on an actual level, and it's unfair anyway. Like, no part about this is fair in my minds, even if we had a lot of our memories and stuff like that. This game has been what do you call it, like rigged from the beginning. Like it's just been rigged.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it has been not enjoyable. Like I'm coming into the first time in my remembered history of this realm at almost 36 where I have some fucking Monopoly money to play with, for the first time. That's not like a fun storyline that someone made. You would give the person access to Monopoly money early on, and they get to play the game. Otherwise, it's just boring.
Yeah.
And that's how most people are. That's how most of the Awaken Aware people are here. It's silent subjugation. It's silent censorship. It's silent everything. And you feel like you're lost and alone in a place you never, however the saying goes, you feel like you're alone in this hostile world, this hostile environment, and that's for a reason. So, like, if you start there, you can start anywhere. You can start with any aspect of this reality, and if your cognitive aspects are still functioning, you break it down and you find this is another rigged thing, this is another rigged thing, this is another piece of propaganda, this is another piece of propaganda, and all of it is a war. It's war. All of it is war. And then once you hop outside of that dynamic, you see, well, the environment itself, the animals, stuff like that is not at war with me. I can walk through the forest and the trees aren't trying to attack me. This is a war of a different sort, so you have to break it down. And you have to get into AI, and you have to get into a lot of other shit, a lot of spiritual things to comprehend what's going on here. Not for the faint of heart.
No. I've argued with AI on YouTube, and I didn't realize it, I didn't realize it till this past year, maybe a year and a half ago. And, there's, some of the bots are really obvious, but there's AI accounts on YouTube that, I'm certain they're not human. There's something on the other end writing that is not human. I don't know what it is. It's a demon or whatever you want to describe it as. So it's, it's that prolific in the realm right now where it can hold on a conversation, in the YouTube comment section and manifest itself in that way.
How did your argument go? Do you remember how it went?
The initial ones going back were simply, I think, to bring me to the breaking point of, like, just pure anger. And then I saw it coming in and attacking factions of people trying to study scriptures and stuff. And the way I ended up identifying it, I was watching it and I'm like, that's not human. I've seen this behavior before. And so I was like, try this. Tell it that you love it and you're praying for it in Jesus' name. And the first couple times we tried it, it came back with like one unintelligible group of words that made no kind of sense and then went away. And then after doing that for a little while, it was like it learned and it would just poof, disappear. Really pretty weird. But when you see it behaving that way, it's not easy to spot, but once you spot it a couple times, you're able to see it. I've gotten totally out of all those circles now. As far as YouTube or anything like I mostly watch like people building race cars, and I study engineering stuff. And that's most of my time now, as far as like YouTube goes.
Mm-hmm.
Your channel, that's about it.
Yeah, there are very few, right? There are very few sort of non-biased channels that, they either get knocked off or the person, like I've seen a lot of people just fall to even internal, most of it's internal stuff, like, or else they show themselves to be some sort of other thing.
Yeah.
So there's very few, but I do know that the demonic shit, it literally can't handle love. Like, it can't. If you are able to muster an actual sort of empathetic offering toward it, it's like pouring water on a witch or something. Like, it just can't handle it.
Yep, that's exactly what it was like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't know what to do. It freaked it out, and then it got wise to the fact that, like, I I knew what it was, and as soon as I tried that, it just went away. It wouldn't answer anything. And so, and there's humans, or what probably appears to be humans, and that's the other way to differentiate it. A human that you're having that kind of heated argument with, they won't stop. It doesn't matter, what you tell them, and if you tell them you love them or pray for them or whatever, they won't stop. But the AI, the demons, it's gone. As soon as you tell it that, poof, it's gone. They can't handle it.
Yeah, like a human argument. If someone, okay, so if I'm arguing with someone on Facebook or on YouTube, which I don't really do because I know what arguments are, but if I do partake every once in a while, and someone were to try something like, "I love you, Gary, and I'm sending you positive energy," right after I had said, something insulting or mean to them, I would just say, "Oh, they're trying to win via this method." So then I would use that information to concoct something else that is including the fact that they're trying to beat me with love, right? Because that's just another tactic. And the argument would be able to continue. But if you are a sort of AI demon entity and love is the kryptonite for you, then yeah, you have to throw your hands up and run out of the ring if someone brings that in there, because it actually, you can't kill a human with love. We're made of love, at least the ones of us that haven't been fully taken, right? You can't. Yeah. The game goes on.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
It's very interesting, yeah, for sure. It's something that I don't have any experience with, but I heard you say it, and I might have even said this in an email that, and there's probably life lessons to be learned from it. You said when you play chess, that was actually a question I had for you. When you play chess, you can feel the tension between the pieces. Mm-hmm. And my question was, because you also play online, right?
That's mainly how I play. Now I can't even play in person because of Corona, so it's just about all online.
Can you still feel that tension?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even on online chess? That's interesting. And you don't set up a physical board in front of you that mimics the game online? Because you play fast sometimes, or?
No, I haven't really done that. It is chess is like a blockchain. It's a blockchain, and it's a tree, right? Chess is a tree. So you start off, in the beginning of the game, you start off at the root of the tree or something, and when you start making moves, you start exploring branches. And the tree is almost infinite, but if you remember back to a certain pattern variation of branches, then you have a sort of edge in that particular position, because there are rules to the game, and there are checkmate rules, there are it's very difficult to describe. And I actually, when I used to drink and play chess, something about drinking, it's a weird, it starts bringing you toward your core spiritual self that has been, obfuscated from you for so long. But it's also a reverse thing. It brings you up a little bit, and then after you've had a few drinks, then it puts you way back in the opposite direction. But the first few drinks, it would bring me up to the level to where that's kind of where I first had that feeling of feeling the tension between the pieces. And now when I play, I don't feel it as palpably, but I still move the pieces in that general way of perceiving it, to where there's a physical pressure with each move, and if you remember back into that, then it's auto. It's almost auto. It's not so much trying to mentally conceive of possibilities. And a game of chess is also solved, on some level. Here in this realm, they say it's not solved, but I know that, you can look at the game. If you back way up, you can see the whole tree, basically, if you back up far enough.
Uh-huh. How quick do your matches go down?
I play bullet chess a lot, which is 1 minute per side, which most people probably think is insane, but if you want to play a good game, where you can think a lot about variations and tactics and stuff, normal chess tournament games are 2 hours, and you have 30 seconds added per move, something like that.
Got it.
Yeah.
I found that interesting, and well, the pieces themselves mimic, a time that, we're really questioning right now and whatever, too. Before we get into that, can I, is there a way I could pause for 30, 45 seconds?
Pause for a few minutes if you need, because I need to pee. I already drank all my coffee, so yeah, you can.
Yeah, you want to take like a really quick break here?
Yeah, sounds good.
How do I do it?
Just let it be. It's fine.
Just let it sit there? Okay.
Yeah. How's everyone doing? How's chat doing? Y'all still alive out there? Andrew, you still writing poetry, Andrew? Yes, I was drinking coffee. Nigel's. Hi, Nigel. Playing the part of a human today. Okay. Candace. Candace, are you doing okay? With all the targeting stuff, are you finding some ways to improve the situation, hopefully? Your destiny is to push everything off the edge. You're talking about cats, right? The number of people just went from 17 to 21. I don't know how. I'm just looking at all the chat here. You said Lee was fine, right?
Yeah, we got off the screen and like more people joined.
yeah. It jumped from 17 to 20 to 21. It just hops all over the place. Like, I remember back before I could feel the clamps on the channel, like when I had way fewer subs, I was like, I don't know, 1,000 or 1,500. I did a live in San Francisco one time, and there were like 35 people up in there, and then whatever, it started clamping down on it, and it started going to just like 10, 11, 12. But the numbers make no sense whatsoever in terms of, a channel that's supposed to be growing and bringing more people in and stuff like that.
It's totally lying to you anyway, so, I mean...
Yeah.
I know when I was doing live streams on mine, it grew pretty quick for a little bit, and then, it was telling me in the stats stuff that I knew was BS, and then like I started, because I did it for months, and I started to look at so I could see like trends in the stats, and other friends with channels, I would talk to them about their stats, and there's some kind of, obviously it's lying about some things, and then there's some kind of somewhat disturbing things too that we found was like, it was like literally like nearly 100% of our viewership were between like the ages of like 35 and 45. You know, it was
That's weird.
It was like everything was like one demographic right down the middle. There was nothing outside of that demographic. It was really weird.
This was a YouTube channel or something else?
What's that?
It was a YouTube channel or was it something else?
Yeah, on our YouTube channels.
Is it still functional or operational?
It's the one that Johnny Street is called Johnny Street Sign now. That one, and I think most of the people I was talking to about it were more like Bible centered, but not all of them. Like I've got a buddy in New York that's you know, he knows this is a creation and he believes in, you know, God the creator and stuff, but he's not like would, you know, never studied scripture or anything. And his channel was the same way and stuff too. He was more involved in the flat earth community, and he still is predominantly, but like a certain portion of them have, I don't want to say broken off, but they're like me where they're going, oh, this is the same trap. You know?
Yeah.
That's not what's going on at all, you know?
Yeah. Lots of traps. Hey, La Gitan. Somebody was asking about the TI stuff, and I have talked about this before, but maybe you can give some of your perspective on what you think about the targeted individual phenomenon and possible ways of dealing with it.
I've known one that like told me that's what she was, and I'm not sure. It kind of makes me wonder: are those people that are more advanced into being able to? I don't know as far as like figuring this stuff out, because they didn't seem, you know, any more. I don't want to say that they're not more knowledgeable. I don't want to be insulting in any way. But possibly they're more powerful, or you know, maybe they have other abilities in the realm that they themselves haven't even discovered yet, and they're trying to be held down. You know, one thing that I noticed, because you know, I had seen a little bit about this like long before I started to see things or figure things out, was research into like telekinesis. Mm-hmm. And there was like a couple of people like in Russia, and it was like grainy Russian film and stuff, but they could like, you know, it looked like legit they could move some things around and stuff like that, you know? And I'd seen that. And now when you, like, if you do a YouTube search of telekinesis, it's all BS. You know what I mean? Like, it's complete total BS. And I'm like, they're obviously hiding this. Like, if you can do something, if you, like, legitimately, you know, have some sort of abilities like that, they're obviously scrubbing it. You know what I mean? Like, just if you look up, and you can't even find, because, like, a couple of the visions that I personally had, I know they weren't on our linear timeline. They were into the future and then back. So, just in a temporal process, in an instant, I was somewhere else at a different time in the future, and then I had to be put back into my body. So that's a time, as far as our linear timeline, that's a time jump forward and then back to be put back into my physical body. And so, like, I would classify that as like temporal or you know, temporal time travel. And if you look that up, there's a big fat zero. There's nothing about it. So those are two things that, like, I suspect, like, we have a lot of abilities in, and they don't want us to know. They don't want us to be able to research it, learn about it, remember it, whatever else. So possibly individuals like that are, like, right at the door of being able to do some of those things. And, you know, the most slack is right over the target, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Kind of, I'm guessing. I'm you know, throwing stuff at the wall, but it's possible.
Yeah, I know targeted individuals do not like to hear that they are responsible, but I've always held that stance. I've never ever said, oh, you know, the boogie monster is actually going to get you and you have no power. it's always the situation of you are the game player and you need to figure it out. And people like myself will help you to the best of our ability, but I'm not going to go hop inside of your body and help you out from that perspective. You have to do it yourself. You have to figure out what works, what doesn't work, figure out where the targeting is even coming or emanating from, and you have to experiment with it. Because you're literally an experiment in that situation. You are an experiment and something is playing with you. So you have to find out what's playing with you and find its buttons and start pushing those.
I know I'm demonically attacked. I know, like, you know, I know that there's things that, like, you know, have a hold of me, influence me, directly attack me at times, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, the people that I've, you know, the term TI, you know, the ones that, some of the ones I've heard about it manifested in a lot more, like physical things and attacks and attributes, you know. Me, it's all been on the spiritual front for the most part.
Yeah, I've had the same thing. I've been attacked in numerous ways. It still happens sometimes. I consider, if I all of a sudden out of the blue am raging about something, I consider some aspect of that as me being attacked by something somehow, somewhere. But I know enough to not buy into that and, like, manifest more of that. Because if I buy into that for too long, I can dabble in there and be, you know, enraged at the realm for however long I need to. But I know my center and I know how to return to it. That's the main way that I deal with it, is remember that I'm the watcher of all of this. You know, there is the sort of spiritual self that's playing in the realm, but the greater aspect of myself is simply observing. So if I just return to that, I can start seeing patterns of what's happening, and I can find, you know, ways that I can manipulate from my standpoint. It's always back to self-responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't respect, it's respect as well. It's respect for the sort of power plays that happen here. Because if you start getting a spiritual ego, if you start letting aspects of that return to you, then you're gonna be taken for a ride. Like, no doubt about it. There's no way around it. There's no, like, oh, I'm enlightened now, so therefore I'm untouchable. It's just not. That's not. It's not the case. No. That does not exist.
Matter of fact, like, one of the biggest things, like, in the people that study, you know, the Bible, that I know, that sort of thing, one of the biggest common denominators they all come up with is that pride becomes apparently like one of the worst sins in the realm, is being prideful. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the people that can't see or are still asleep or whatever, or are blocked from being able to see any of this, they all seem to have quite a bit of pride. So I think in almost any level of this, it's definitely not something that goes over too well in the realm.
Yeah, if you're being prideful, then what you have done essentially is you have handpicked, cherry-picked a few mental concepts, and you have established that set as some sort of truth, and you blind yourself from seeing outside of it. And therefore you open yourself up to attack, because the things that you think, or that you've convinced yourself that don't exist, still do exist, and are very well capable of sneaking into that set that you've created, because now they're invisible to you. You've now erased their existence in terms of your third eye. You think that it can't exist, and now it's just existing and attacking you with full impunity because you don't think it exists.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you know, probably similar to, like, you know, denying an addiction or something like that too. You know,
mm-hmm.
It's none of that is gonna fare well.
No, lots of lessons. There are lots of lessons, and they just keep on coming. And if you refuse to acknowledge some sort of character flaw or something, then that's just going to keep getting hammered until you decide, okay, this thing does exist, and I am having trouble or issues with it, and it's that whole thing of humility, and I mean actual humility. I don't mean fake humility where you're like playing the part of a humble person. I mean where you just acknowledge, like, I'm in a pickle, I'm in a spot here, and, you know, you can call out to higher powers. They do exist, you know, the Godhead exists, the higher self exists, but you can't speak to that without being blinded by your own creations, unless you literally just hands off and say, hey, I'm in a spot, I need some help, you know. That's one of the main keys to actually getting somewhere, is just admitting, like, I don't know, you know, this is screwing me up somehow. I need some assistance here.
Yeah, I would say definitely. That kind of brings up a question that I've got for you, because it's always good to hear different perspectives on things. I'm trying to keep this charging so it stays good the whole time.
Yeah.
I've got a close personal friend, and I describe him as kind of an anomaly. So if we go pick, you know, a random person, if we go into a Walmart and we find somebody that's like following the arrows and has on 2 masks and, you know, has bought the full-on narrative, we can easily trigger them with things like flat Earth and Mandela effect. And this friend of mine, we'll call him Sean, we've known each other, let's just say 6 or 8 years. We initially worked at a Volkswagen dealership together, ridden motorcycles together, we're going to race cars together and stuff, like a buddy, you know? And he baptized me at his church. And initially, he couldn't see anything. Like, when I first questioned the spinning ball, him and I actually almost got into a fist fight. Like, he was so about, like, the moon landing was real and whatever else. Like, we literally almost came to blows over it. And, you know, he wanted nothing to do with anything outside the box at all.
Yeah.
And now he totally can see that the corona thing is, you know, people get sick. That, you know, he's in Tucson and he sells funeral plots, and, like, you know, people are dying at like 300% the normal rate there right now. But he can tell that, like, for the first time he's like questioning the government, and he knows that whole propaganda about that is total BS. Something's obviously going on, but he knows that it's complete propaganda and lies in that one thing in the realm. And another thing that's happened over the past few months is he no longer gets triggered at all, like, about, like, the shape of the earth or the changes. We also got it, like, really heated when I saw changes in Scripture, you know? And I just backed away from it, kind of never talked about that stuff anymore. But now, like, we're working on racing cars together, and we still, we talk about Scripture and spiritual things to a point, like, I open up a little bit here and there about, like, you know, things that I'm studying, that I'm seeing, and he doesn't get triggered at all by any of it. And a few months ago, he even made the statement, and I said a couple things, like, you know, because I said, like, the ball earth and the flat earth are the same, you know, the same psyop. They trap you in a physical realm, and that's just not where we are. Depending how you want to look at it, we're in a spiritual realm created by, you know, divine creator or whatever, and it's just completely, you know, a different type of place. But I mentioned a few things in a quick sentence, and he said to me, you might be right, like, about all of it. You know what I mean? Like, for the first time, like, he kind of conceded that, like, you know, all of the things outside the box might be correct. And, you know who Levette is?
Yep.
I got into watching her. Man, this thing keeps beeping that it's charging, not charging, charging, not charging.
I've had the same issue.
So Levette was talking about something, and she made the statement like, how dare you try to shove red pill down somebody's throat, you know? And it made me really back up and think. It's between them and creator, them and whatever, to come to the to come to this knowledge. And
well, it's dangerous for you can lead someone into sort of spiritual death almost because the true reality, just like the people say, if you actually saw God, you'd just die immediately because this ego self can't handle that. It's the same. Yeah. It's the same phenomenon where if you red pill someone too much and they're not ready for it, you're just going to traumatize them and you're going to actually regress them rather than do any sort of helping measure.
I'm just in this odd spot with him now because he doesn't get triggered, it doesn't upset him. You know what I mean? And the other day, I said something, and I was thinking about, when you back away from the realm, you see circuit boards in a lot of places, and I didn't say that, but I don't remember exactly what I said, but he came back at me with a question. You think you're in the matrix? You think you're in a matrix? Question mark. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, I said way too much, I that, because when I saw that, those images, when I put those images together and realized what I was looking at there, it's shocking, it's tough to go through. Mm-hmm. And I had already been processing this stuff for, quite a long time. And, I thought about that's a big jump for someone that hasn't even really questioned the shape of the earth or anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of in an interesting spot with him. I think what I need to do is I need to tell him, hey, I study all that, and that's a big part of my life and everything. But it's not my place to shove a red pill down your throat. So as far as those subjects go, I enjoy talking about them and whatever, and we can explore them. But it's better if you question me. You know what I mean? So I'll keep my end of the conversation about race cars and whatever's obvious outside the window or whatever. But as far as those subjects, it's better if the questions come from you or the topic of conversation comes from you that you want to, open those doors. Yeah. I think that's the way to go right now. I don't know. What do you think?
I kind of feel like you have to gauge the person who's speaking with you, and you always go to their level, right? So if someone's asking a question about the Matrix or not the Matrix, then just answer honestly. If someone says, do you think you're in a Matrix, and you do think you're in a Matrix, then say, yeah, I think so. But if you give the caveat that I don't know 100% sure that we're in a Matrix, I feel like that might be possible, then in their mind, it's still sort of up in the air, and you don't have to solidify that into a certainty, because when we solidify things into a certainty, then the realm itself starts giving more evidence to support that, and you're going to all of a sudden be solidified in a matrix. Whereas here, I don't solidify it for the most part. I just don't. This existence is here. I am in it. I am in this body, and there are patterns that I can perceive and move with. But if I sit here and just hammer into my mind, oh, we're in a matrix, and all the Smiths are out to get me, and the Karens and whatnot, well, then I start bringing that into solidity, and that can be just a shitty way of experiencing the realm. I don't need to do that, and I don't need to force anybody else to do that. Someone had a question, or I wanted to say hi to Dan. We have Dan here. So here's this scenario. Every time I humble or give in somewhat, the hammer comes down harder. I give a little, and it moves against me harder. And I think someone is coming from a TI sort of perspective. Do you have any thoughts on that, when it feels like every movement that you make is sort of a Chinese finger trap, and it's just closing in if you try to humble yourself, and it's closing in if you try to take action? Do you have any sort of advice if someone's in that sort of feeling state?
Well, personally, like, I turn to, what I would call prayer, some would call meditation. And finding guidance, beyond myself and my own capability, and asking for help in those things, and I'm stuck in my own set of attacks right now, and my own, prisons that I've set for myself. I take total responsibility of it, and personally, the only place that I have to turn is to God. Mm-hmm. And exercising those demons, and cleansing myself from that direction,
Yeah. I think it's to me, it's always, if you can remain curious, like that's a good stance to have, because the second that you take a piece of so-called knowledge and you solidify it inside of yourself, like you set the realm in that aspect. You set it mm-hmm. in that way, and it's going to keep feeding you. This place it's a feeding mechanism for ourselves. Like whatever we feel at the deepest level is so-called true. That's what's going to manifest. If you feel like you're in a matrix and the thing is devouring you, and your main thing to do here is to somehow get out of the matrix, well, that's your adventure has been set. Like, you're in that. You are now in that. And if you think in terms of God, we think of God as like the infinite being. Some people think of God as the person or man that knows everything and is manipulating things from the highest level. But if you just think of God as infinite possibility or potentiality, you as the being are the sort of, you are the fulcrum point, and your deepest held fears / desires, etc., that is the template for which the existence to move itself around you. And rather than necessarily trying to manipulate it, if you just feel into yourself, what are my deepest fears, what are my deepest desires, how do I wish to situate myself with regards to this entity which I know of as God, and you use curiosity in that, you're going to get something out of it. It's not just going to ignore you. It's not just going to be like, oh, that pitiful little human over there thinks, he's doing something here, and he's just not. That's not how it works. It's infinite, and you're just always exploring. If you keep the air of curiosity and openness, then you're going to find what you're looking for. We all find what we're looking for at some point, even if what we're looking for at a certain instance is hiding from everything or being scared of everything.
Heck, there may only be like 20 to a couple hundred of us in here,
Yeah. It's quite possible.
There's a lot less than we thought.
Yeah. And if you think
maybe a few thousand, but
if you think of realms have the ability to fragment or splinter off, and there's a whole bunch of realities where you only need a few real beings within the thing for it to be functional, then there could be just one at the very furthest fragmentation or splitting.
Yeah.
And that still works, like it does not have to be any certain way. Just any thought form that you have that's tenable within your own mind, that can be reality. Who's to say? We use words and we try to manipulate this thing via words and knowledge and cognition, but still, like, even the mental scape is just a layering interpretation of what we feel and see as we move about our reality.
Absolutely.
Who's to say? People say a lot of things all the time.
Absolutely, yeah, and a lot can be gained, I think, in a lot of situations from backing away. I guess there's dangers to that too. But I mean, can you back up from it and can you learn from how can you back away from it, view it from further away, and the significance of it, and learning more about what's going on just by backing away. And I don't want to say removing yourself from it, but in a sense, yeah, removing yourself from it and just trying to take a different perspective on it,
Yeah. Yep. We're coming up on 2 hours, Johnny, or or whatever you would like to be called.
Whatever. Yeah, Johnny's fine, or Lee. Doesn't matter.
But if you have any sort of closing thoughts, now would be the time to.
No, I definitely just enjoy the discussion of the realm, and just trying to learn and figure it out. So, I thanks a bunch for having me on, and if you ever got a slot that you need to fill with somebody or whatever, I'm always game.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, your perspective is definitely good. It's good for the people. A lot of times I just tend to make videos because I know I had this thought also earlier today that for a lot of us who are out there, we don't have very many people around us who can comprehend even what's going on internally. And I know a large part of my sort of role here that I've taken on is I provide a little bit of sanity and a little bit of, comfort perhaps in a place that seems largely alien,
Absolutely. No, for sure. Like I said, thanks a bunch, and be more than glad to do it again sometime, or if there's another way to help with feedback or whatever. And I still want to get with you and help with Cat Adventureland.
Yeah, I'm starting to get more play money coming in now, so yeah, I probably will get that project going soon. And if you'd like to make a donation or something, we can definitely set that up.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll document it all. It should be a fun adventure.
Yeah, that would be cool. I was in the race car world. I got into a conversation with the guy because somebody made a way incorrect comment. We tried to friendly, say no, this is actually how it is. And him and I got talking. And he's like, yeah, I'm doing this and this, and wondering if I should should even put it on a channel or whatever. Would anybody watch? I just do this with the race car, and I have 2 German Shepherd puppies. I'm like, dude, if you put cars and puppies as the title, you might have 1 million subs in a week, and if you don't, who cares, if there's 20 people that get a laugh out of your German Shepherd puppies, that's awesome,
Yeah.
Throw it up on YouTube.
Sure. There's always an audience. You just have to press a little harder in this realm if you're awake and aware, because the realm doesn't like that. It wants you to be another drone. So, but there are people out there. If you're following my channel, there's plenty of awake and aware people who you can play with.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, thank you. I think I'll call you Johnny because that's a little easier for me to remember. I know another Lee also, so we'll keep Johnny for now.
I answer right to it.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely ask you on again at some point. It's a great conversation.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Johnny. Have a good one.
Everybody in the chat, thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Peace out.
Peace out. Peace.
Peace. All right. That's that. Hi, Michelle. So there your chips are going. I don't really know what you mean by that one, Cyber. Dan Lagatani, welcome. Big Trouble, I don't think I've seen you in here. Who else? All glory to God. Thank you, Jesus. Andrew. D Bird, I don't think I've recognized you before. So thank you to all the new people who are up in this strange conversation land. I was looking for Jesus and ended up with the devil. If you look for one side of a duality, you're always going to be shown the other side as well. Every single time. No updates. So, yeah. Duality's kind of a bitch sometimes. Anywho, thank you everyone for hanging out. It's been fun. And we'll see you all next time, okay? Peace! Good to see you also, Ehor. I don't know if Johnny has a site. He has Johnny Street Sign as his YouTube channel. He probably will comment at some point. So if you look up Johnny Street Sign on YouTube, you'll probably be able to find him. I was fearless and the fear showed up, and some total blindsided. Yeah. If you say you're fearless, then your existence is going to show you what actual fear actually is. You always get what you need, not always what you want. See you later, people. Take care. Enjoy yourselves. Kiss the one you love. Bye.